Hey guys, it's Matt. Today we're going to talk about 3 unique ways you can reduce the expenses on your rental property. So, real briefly, the reason why you want to reduce your expenses may seem fairly obvious. Number one, hey, it puts more money in your pocket. If your rents are here, your expenses are here. If you reduce those expenses, you're going to put more money in your pocket. The second reason why you want to reduce the expenses on your rental property is it actually increases the value of your property. If your property is valued on the income that it makes, then if your expenses go down, the income goes up. It increases the valuation of the property. Now there's calculations that involve cap rates and that involve NOI and things like that. There's a ton on BP about that kind of stuff. But if you've read those kinds of things, you know that reducing your expenses is going to increase your value. So keep an eye on that. Now here is 3 very unique ways you can do it. Number one is look outside the box. Let's just call it that. The reason I'm saying look outside the box is I don't want you to look at incremental expense shifts and looking at an expense and finding ways you can reduce it to, reduce it by 5%, reduce it by 10%. I'm talking about looking at an expense and questioning why it even needs to be and finding a way to make it 0. Here's a couple of examples of just drastic major shifts in expenses. Realizing that you maybe don't have to have your property cleaned as often as you do. If you have a multifamily that has common area, you're probably paying for a cleaning service to clean that common area. Maybe it's too much. We realized that we were paying too much, too often to have one of our apartment buildings cleaned, and so I cut that in half. Tenants didn't notice a difference. I noticed no difference when I walked through the property, and so there was 50% savings in the cleanings. Easy. Major example for knocking expenses down to nothing was in our office complex, which I'm sitting in right here. We have a pretty sizable flat roof, so we had a solar guy come and look at this. I'm thinking I'm going to put solar on this roof. From the numbers that I saw, I can reduce my electrical expense to 0 for this building and maybe put a few extra dollars in my pocket too on top with regards to the incentives and the profits that come along with using solar. So look at your expenses, not just say, okay, how can I reduce this? How can I reduce that? How can I knock it down to 0? Whether that's putting it off to the tenants or whatever that may be. So the second thing is use efficiencies for reducing your expenses. That could be water reducing items like water reducing shower heads, water reducing toilets. There's low flow toilets and things like that. By the way, with water, you can also find a way to build that off to the tenants as well through sub-metering your water. That goes back to option 1 on questioning why the expense needs to be there to begin with at all. So you can sub-meter the water and charge the tenants for their water usage. That's possible. There's devices out there that will let you do that. But going back to option 2, just looking at consumption, reducing consumption, whether that's through heating systems, finding ways to reduce the consumption of those things, finding ways to make things more energy efficient. So just major reduction of consumption of items. So that's 1. Number 2. Number 3 is looking at things that you think are fixed and finding ways to reduce those too. That most people think that real estate taxes are what they are. That's something that just is what it is. It's not going to go anywhere. So look at the real estate tax bill that you have and realize that in most states you are assessed for a value of your property. So if your property is worth $100,000, the assessment should be plus or minus, stating your values around the same. There's different multipliers that are used and stuff like that. So the assessment might not actually be the same as your value. You got to consult with your local county or your local township or even your local state to see how they calculate the assessment. But if your property is worth 100 and the assessment is 150, 200, I can tell you're probably overassessed, which means that they're valuing your property at more than what it's actually worth, and that assessment determines your real estate taxes. So if you go through that motions to determine what your assessment is, you may find that your property is being charged too much in real estate taxes. Now in New Jersey, that constitutes a tax appeal, which is a minor court appearance. It's really not that big of a deal. You may have to have a tax assessor come out to your property, but I'll tell you what, it's worth it. I've saved thousands and thousands per year in real estate tax bills by challenging my real estate taxes when properties are overassessed. So I strongly recommend you looking into that. And that's something that you might think is a fixed bill, but it's not. It's something that can get adjusted. Same may go for homeowners association fees if you're a part of an HOA. That may be able to be adjusted if you can challenge what you're being charged on that. So anyway, that's it. looking at your bills and questioning why they even need to be there for expenses, number one. Number two, looking at incremental shifts in consumption of some of the things that are consumables on property, like water, heat, that kind of stuff. And then number three, looking at things that you think are fixed but might not be. So hopefully that's all of value to you guys, and hopefully it puts lots of money in your pocket to put it to work. Please leave some comments below on ways that you've actually been able to reduce expenses, or ask any questions you have. I'd love to get a good dialogue going for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.